Well, welcome to The Path. We are all here together. We're excited about this episode. We're here. We're going to introduce you to one of our partners, which we're super excited about because it means that we're growing, and it means we're really excited to introduce a new person that makes us better as an organization, as better as people. So we're really excited about introducing her to you. But before we do that, I just wanted to check in with everybody, see how you guys are doing. Stuart, how the heck are you, buddy?
I couldn't be better. I came into this call just so prepared. The joke is, for all the listeners, this is like my third time in a row not being able to log on to the damn podcast app. So I've been mocked for the last 10 minutes about my inability to manage technology. So I'm in a transitional phase, Chris. I'm like working through my insecurity of not being able to get online, but also laughing at it, like enjoying the fact of my my inabilities. So, but I'm doing great.
You got to laugh at yourself. And by the way, listeners, he doesn't know if we were mocking him because he couldn't hear. That was his technical difficulty. So it was nothing but support, buddy. Nothing but support and cheering you on.
That's only coming from one of these four screens, is that optimistic support part. But hey, to be honest with you, I think today was a good day for a little some laughter. It's been a busy week. It's been a busy start to the year. So having a little fun at my own expense is a good thing. I've been fairly productive the last month. So having a day of not having technology go my way is the price of admittance. I'll take it. But life is good. We are venturing out of the snow here in Philly and venturing towards 70-degree weather this weekend. So I'm pumped. The hibernation is ending. We are able to start to get some fresh air. So I'm good. How about you, Tobe?
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that you guys are getting through the seasons in the Midwest and the East Coast. I had birds chirping out the window, and Chris gave me a hard time about Mr. Birds chirping in the background. You guys haven't opened up your windows in months. So I'm glad you guys are coming out of hibernation. I also love the little early pearl of wisdom that Stuart taught us today of absence of information. People make up the worst stories rather than positive ones. So he was thinking a lot about the hazing and the mocking that he cannot confirm was happening or not, but yet he kind of threw it out there, which is fair. And I'm pumped about today's call. I'm really excited about where we're at, but also like just that we as founders get to really pick and choose who we want to play in the sandbox with us. And that's why I'm excited about our listeners hearing about who we are having. Has been for quite a while, but certainly have on the call today or on the podcast today. So I'm ready to go.
Love it, guys.
How about you?
Yeah, hey, same for me. I'm ready for spring, brother. I love how Tobe puts Pittsburgh in the Midwest, but I'll take that, Tobe. I guess it is kind of Midwest. But life is good on my end. I actually get to go park up this Friday, so we have home for spring break. So I'm super excited about that. Just having the family, like even a little piece. Aiden's going over to Ireland for spring break. I guess this is what happens when you just live your best life. He's going to visit a buddy over there that's studying and seeing another buddy that's already over there. So, I mean, just the things that these guys get to do now is so cool. I mean, and then he just got word today that he gets to go to Germany for one of his projects at school, like all expenses paid trip to Germany. At least that's what he tells us. And I'm sure we'll see some expenses on the credit card. It's like under the guise of all expenses paid, but I'm sure we'll get it. But just to have park home, it's going to be really cool. I was actually on a coaching call yesterday, and the person that I was talking to actually said that his daughter was home. And I'm like, oh, man. So we closed with saying, hey, dude, I'm giving you this advice because I'm giving myself this advice. Like, do something special for her. With your time with your daughter next week, just carve out something. And a lot of things we talk about in True Path is that, like, obviously, you should do that, right? Like, we all know that, but as busy executives, it's the integration of those concepts, right? It's the integration of those in the execution of those ideas. So him and I have both held ourselves accountable for doing something special this week with our kids that are home from college. So I'm really excited to do that and execute that. So but otherwise life is really cool. I'm super excited to introduce Mrs. Amanda Filippelli to the podcast. Little origin story here. Amanda and I connected through another friend, and by chance this morning we actually had coffee, all three of us together. So I got a lot of Amanda today, which is always awesome. But one of my friends that I did some work with at Special Olympics for years when I was an executive, and we never really were able to hook up because I was one of those busy executives that never had the time, and I was too busy and blah, blah, blah. So when I left corporate America, I made and you guys know this, I decided to say yes to everything. People that wanted to meet, so on and so forth. And Melissa is one of the people that I met with. And I told her about I wanted to write a book. And she's like, well, I know this unbelievable woman that can help you with that, at least give you some direction and give whatever, because it's kind of a tough environment out there. So Amanda and I talked and met, and I was all in. And then she played hard to get. And she's like, well, I don't know if I really want to do I don't know if I can. She was having a baby at the time. She wasn't playing hard to get. She was actually pregnant. So my version of hard to get. But she took me on as a client. And and I will get into this, Amanda, what that meant to me and, the relationship that I've been able to develop with you through that experience. That is a very personal experience, and you are the best at it. You were my therapist when I needed it. You were my just someone that I felt so entrusted to tell you some of these stories that were not easy to tell. I barely knew you, and I was sobbing on most calls, just writing this thing with you. So we ended up, writing the book, and we're in the process of writing the book right now. And then we needed another business partner that could bring strategy to our company and design and make it look like a legitimate company, right? And she played that role brilliantly and continues to play that role brilliantly to where now she is a part of TruePath. She just announced that on her website, which I'm so proud of, and to see that come to life and that partnership come to life. So without further ado, Mrs. Amanda Filippelli, how are you, buddy?
I'm great. You're going to make me emotional before I even say anything. Thank you.
So great to have you on.
That's what he does. He gets the emotion flowing pretty quick.
Ooh, well, this is really cool to be here. So yes, I'm super happy to be here and to be chatting with you guys. So thank you.
Well, over coffee, she's like, well, what are we going to talk about? How can I prepare? I'm like, hey, we just talk about your path. We talk about where the heck you've been, where you've been, where you're going, what's getting in the way. So I want to do that. But Tobe, the Jedi, always taught me this very important question about how to ask and how to get that conversation started. So Toby, I'll leave it up to you. I'll leave it up to the Jedi to pose our first question.
Well, and truth be told too, we actually had a conversation with Amanda a little bit prior to this as well. And there was some nerves or apprehension about that statement. So what I'll try to do is also help her along the way as I try with people I do ask this question of. But to know you is to know what, and that is such a big question. I get that. And there are so many places people can go. And I think, Amanda, for us, knowing, everyone on the screen, the holistic, really knowing somebody, not only what they do, but also who they are, is really what we're all about. And we mean it at every, person we ever want to bring on as a partner, every client we engage on, to really see what their commitment is to that. So I just encourage you that, you get to choose kind of what you want to say with regards to that. I just think that I would encourage some level of what are the pieces and parts, the people or the markers or that. And it does, I guess it does require some vulnerability on that end, but, we also got you here, and, in terms of we all are here to support you, and just for an ability for people to just feel you a little bit during our podcast today versus just only knowing what she does or did.
Yeah, so I appreciate the question. I think the reason the question feels big to me is because the answer feels really big. To know me is to know about creativity. And I'll break that down a little bit because I have always been sort of like a Jill of all trades and have always really embraced that. I think we're really taught to focus on one thing and to find your niche and to pursue it relentlessly. And that's how you become successful, or that's how you become fulfilled. But that has never felt right to me. And actually growing up, I was always a writer, an artist, a painter, a sculptor. I love to do all of these things. And the one thing I got told over and over again was, I better have a backup plan. I better have a backup plan because that's never going to pay the bills. It's never going to set me up in life. I'm never going to find the fulfillment that I'm dreaming about. And so I did that. I devised a backup plan, and I grew up pretty deeply enmeshed in the mental health care system, both myself and my family. And I felt like I really had something to say about that system. And so my backup plan was, my first degree was a psychology degree. And I worked in direct care for over 10 years.
Wow.
And in that time, I still never stopped being a writer. I still never stopped being an artist. I still never stopped being a creative. And I went back to school twice over for degrees in those spaces, because while I had been kind of inundated with this fear about a backup plan. So I wanted to honor that. But at the same time, I had something to prove. Mm-hmm. And so I decided I was going to be good at all of these things. I could be good at all of these things I felt called to do, that I felt passionate about, and that I could juggle more than one focus. I think it's a really like diminutive thing to say to people, really minimizing thing to say to people, that like all you can handle is one lane. And I think that we're so much grander than that. And so after I finished both of those degrees, I came out, I quit my job. Well, funny story, I got married, and as soon as we came back from the honeymoon, I said, surprise, I quit my job before we left. So here we go. Nice. And started my first business, out of like a closet in our first house. And that was over 12 years ago. And since then I've built multiple different businesses. And I don't say that just because like what I do for work defines who I am. But to some degree as an entrepreneur, that is true, because I have dedicated myself to really pursuing the things that I'm passionate about, the things that, like I take it seriously, that like, you never work a day in your life if you love what you do. I want to wake up in the morning excited about what I do, and I'm not really willing to sacrifice that. I want my kids to see that as an example. So I'm not really ashamed of the idea that what I do defines, me. And to say that to know me is to know all of the things I do, because they're so deeply tied to who I am. Every single aspect of it, all of these different lanes that I participate in. So I would say, to know me is to know that, despite a long journey of a lot of hardship, grief, pain, depression, all these human things people go through, to know me is to know creativity, because creativity is what has always allowed me to keep going and to keep seeing a different future for myself than the one that, people or society has prescribed for me.
Yeah.
Love that. And I'm sure these guys have some questions. The question that I have, because we've been on this path together for a while now, and I know also some an important role you play that is probably more so, if not equal to this creative, business owner and business person that you are, and that is of a mom. And so I get to see those kids, and I get to see you interact and whatnot. So I'm just curious about just that front, like to know you is also to know the importance of that mom. And then maybe, I don't know the answer to this, but that working mom, and that what lessons you're teaching them, and anything there for us just to kind of to know you, to know that part of like the importance of that.
Oh God, so much. Do you want to take up the whole hour here?
Let's go.
Being a working mom is so important to me, and not in the sense that I feel like I need to like counteract these gender norms we're given or measure up in some kind of way, in the way that I'm trying to do it differently. So, growing up, my parents both worked, and they switched off. My mom was with me during the day while my dad was at work. And then when he came home, my mom went to work in the evenings. But it wasn't like neither one of them were happy. They were working as much as they needed to meet the bare minimums for our family. And there was like a lot of wanting more for everybody. For me, I am really determined to allow my kids to see me do what I love, to see me be valued for what I'm good at, and to also work on my own schedule, and to show them that I can fulfill the needs of clients that I have, or obligations that I have, or my own creations, while also being a fully present parent and centering their experience and their needs first. Because at the end of the day, they come first. I even just like, yesterday we had a team call and both my kids were on the call. One was sitting in front of me putting lip gloss all over my face, and the other one was braiding my hair while I'm like, having a serious conversation. But this idea that in the workforce that there's something unacceptable about that, or that I, mentally can't compartmentalize that happening and participate in that conversation is wrong. I can be fully present in both places, and then I can get off that call and I can be there for them and fulfill their needs. And when I have some time away, or really after they go to bed, then, I do what I need to do for my job, which doesn't feel depleting. It feels regenerative because we're creating a new type of structure where like, I am more productive. I am more creative. I am more, I can stay on task better because I've created an ecosystem that centers my children and supports my work at the same time. And so I want them to grow up knowing like, I don't need you to have a backup plan. I need you to creatively construct a world in which you feel like you can thrive, and the people that are important to you are also, you're present with them.
That's huge.
Love that. That's been hard. That's been something that I'm proud of ourselves too, because we come from, three of us come from corporate America. I was telling Amanda when we were having coffee today, it's like weird to even have a meeting in a coffee shop, because like for almost 3 decades, we were like in the office, suited up, ready to go. You had the professional face on, and to be able to kind of be in that type of, even the coffee shop, a creative type of environment, have different conversations, and to be able to support you with the kids that you have going on, because we want you. You know what I mean? We want that brain. We want that passion of yours. We want everything you bring. And if that means, hey, the kids didn't go to daycare today, so they're part of our calls, and they're part of our calls. And we believe in you. So it's where I know I'm proud of myself. I know these guys that like we've created that environment to make you feel safe enough and comfortable enough to still bring your true self to that space. And we love you for it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And it's, I think also a lot of times parents and women, especially because of the narrative, are scared to say like, this is non-negotiable, for me. Like, I'm a package deal. Like you get me and 2 kids. You want me to be a partner? This is what it looks like. When we go places, I am proud of the thing that I've built here to be able to bring them with me. Like I want them to experience getting on a plane and see mommy talking on the stage. And, I want them to be a part of that, because that's what ignites their sense of ability to do whatever it is that they want to go do too. So to do that in partnership with you guys is really cool. And it's really tied into this other conversation we've had so many times about like, making up for lost time that you felt like when you were in your corporate careers. And so I think like the work now, being a part of this work now to change that narrative in people's minds who are in it, who are in those offices, to say like, listen, this can look different, is huge for me, like so important to me.
Yeah, I think, Amanda, it's so good to have you here, and to be on here finally with you on the podcast means a lot. To Toby's point, you're not a new partner. You've been a foundational partner kind of behind the scenes for the majority of this. And to hear your backstory and to get to know you, the one thing that keeps coming to mind is that word passion and how that shows up for you. Even just then when you were talking about the kids and just how convicted you are around that. One of the first things I think that I found really interesting about our relationship was this idea of like the corporate stiffs, like this corporate world and, some of the unhealthy dynamics that come from that world. And what was so interesting, and I want to come back to another point, was what was so interesting was your view of that world, and yet your acceptance of us, right? And that partnership and that trust that was built. But then to see you so passionate, again, I keep coming back to that word, about what we were trying to build, not just the structure of the company, but this idea of holistic leadership and this idea of connecting the heart and the head, right? And really having people show up authentically and like this. So these two worlds where we came from, this corporate world where we were, trying to create this in that system, and we're quite successful. But then to meet somebody outside of that system that had the same want. And it was like this really beautiful moment of two worlds coming together that probably uniquely wouldn't come together normally, and yet came together with such depth. I'm just curious, like, what was that pivot for you when you were like, hey, these guys aren't so bad. Maybe I can, maybe I can bet on them a little bit. And same for us. I'd love to answer it from our perspective, but it was a powerful unity that came together. And I'm just curious from your line of sight how that came to be.
Well, I think there's three things that happened here for me. The first being that before I met you, my time in corporate comes from the healthcare world, which is a desolate place in shambles, a difficult industry to work in. And I spent years really trying to make revisions to those structures similar to the ones that we do at TruePath. But as a single person, that's hard. That's a lot to take on. So, in an encapsulated version, the organizations that I worked for, I spent a lot of time climbing the ladder there, getting close to working with C-suite, but hitting a lot of bureaucratic red tape, which was super frustrating. And again, to your point about passion, I felt very, very passionate about the work I was doing. But there's this rub that happens between the passion you feel about the work and the corporate structures that are just embedded in place. And seeing that when I quit my job, and my first business as an entrepreneur was actually a wraparound therapy system for at-risk youth and for youth who were funneling out of direct care. And the need was so great because I had found this formula where I was able to infuse these two things we're talking about. I was able to take that sort of corporate knowledge and that professional knowledge and blend it with the creative passion that they needed in the arts. And the need was so great that business scaled so quickly. I almost collapsed under the pressure of it, quite honestly. Like, thank God I didn't have kids then. There was no way I would have been able to do it. And so when I met Chris, he also, like he said, I was very pregnant, very vulnerable, really caught me at the right time. Right.
We kind of knew there was something other than just Chris. We knew that there was another dynamic.
Yeah.
But his story really spoke to me. Like, by the time I had met him, he had already started on this journey and done so much of the intrapersonal work that it takes to come to the conclusions and the things that we teach about at TruePath. And so that really touched me because I thought, well, here's the thing, like, this is the thing I've been up against all this time. I mean, even in the publishing world, even in every sort of business lane that I'm in, this is the same rub. This is the kind of like rub of, capitalist strife. And I appreciated that. I wanted to be a part of something that spoke to that. And I also think there's a lot of value to having like corporate men come out and tackle these things head on. I can recognize that I'm not always the right face of something like this, the right voice of it. It's kind of expected for me to like have the more nurtured perspective of this sort of thing. But to have men come out and say, listen, we're burnout, we're sacrificing our families, we're not fulfilled. It doesn't matter how much money you give us. It's not, there's this cavity inside still. And I wanted to be a part of whatever it meant to support that. And the third thing I think is that once, we got really into the book structure, there's a thing, Stu, you and I have talked about this, where I really have come to a moment in this with our partnerships, specifically the four of us, is that like going into these rooms with people in corporate America who maybe have this stiff ideology that you talk about, that's okay. Like, I'm really not interested in an argument. I'm not interested in calling people out for what I think that they're doing wrong. I'm really interested in calling people in and having deeper conversations. Like, I think that's the piece that's missing in a lot of ways in our society right now. And I think TruePath sets a stage for that. It sets a non-judgmental, open stage for us to be able to sit down and call people in and connect. Like, I don't have to agree with you, but I can connect with you. And that connection is what changes people. I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm not trying to change your opinion. I'm just trying to help you evolve into what you want to be. And so this mission for me, like, really spoke to, before you guys even knew it, a decade's worth of work I had been doing alone. So it feels really good to like not do it alone.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. That passion that was what drew me in right from go. I think the other thing I just want to speak, and for the listeners that know me and know Chris and Toby, and there's a lot of you that know us really well, you also know we're also a pretty deep judge of character, and that, our connection to people has to be deeper than just financial and just from a business perspective. We have deep connection, deep meaning at TruePath. And that's not just at TruePath. That's been who we've been for the last 20 some odd years. That's just kind of our ethos, right? And so what's been so magical is this connection. If you get to know, a lot of listeners know me, and as you get to know Amanda, you'll know that we can be more polar opposite on a lot of things. But what's beautiful about it is this connection around character and connection around just the essence of creating a better world, and what that looks like and how that can be shaped. The new perspective that Amanda brings to this, the three of us, is what we've been missing. And it's that voice that hasn't lived the same experience that the three of us have lived. And not just from a gender perspective, but just from a real life experience. And so one of the things, and I'll kick it back over to you, Chris, but one of the things I just want to say publicly, Amanda, that I respect so much about you is your unique view of the world and the unique perspective of corporate and cultures. And I think the biggest thing was the conversation around creativity and how creativity starts to weave into just the human experience, not just the executive one, or the executive experience, not just the human experience. And so I just want to, you become an unbelievable friend. You become someone that I feel very comfortable going to for advice around business. That's what's refreshing, is to have a partner that not only understands the psychology and the coaching space, but also has a deep understanding of OD and different business functions that we need. So hats off to you for taking the leap and the risk. We did too. We took a bit of a risk as well, but it's been, I think you took a much deeper one. And I'm just grateful that it's turned out the way it's turned out. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm thankful you took the risk too, and it just has been working so well. You just have this way of like telling us what we're trying to figure out for ourselves, and it's just this like awesome dance that we have. And, we're going to be launching a new website, which you're, pretty instrumental in, and just a new vision of TruePath. Like, we've actually found out who we are throughout this last year and a half being with you. Right. And going to sessions and having executive coaching. And it's like, holy cow, there's this whole identity that's emerged that I don't know if we would have been here without your help and having us slow down and figure that out. And it being okay for us to not know who we are at go, right? Like, who we were a year ago is completely different to who we want to be moving forward. Not completely different, but there's more of a narrative and a background, and your creativity has kind of allowed us to get to that space, which has just been so awesome. And that's where I think the passion comes in too, because we're all so excited about what this could become. You have a lot going on, and a lot of the things we talk about on the path is all right, where are you right now on your path? You just had a huge launch, which I was so excited to see, and just the comments, it allows me into your world a little bit more, to see the comments and all the support and just all the enthusiasm for you, all the cheerleaders you have in your life was so cool to see, because you got 3 of the biggest cheerleaders right here in your life now too. Talk to us a little bit about where you are in your path right now and what you got going on.
Yeah. So, before TruePath, I was doing book coaching and publishing coaching, mainly, but one of the programs that I run, which is a pretty unique program, is called the authorpreneur program. And the authorpreneur program goes beyond just helping people, write and publish books. It teaches people how to become business people. It teaches somebody how to build a platform, how to basically run a small business using your book as a product. And through that program, I've done a lot of creative strategy, not just for individuals, but for companies too, in terms of branding and storytelling and what that looks like and what's your narrative. And so now, having transitioned that creative strategy kind of full time over to TruePath, I've limited my authorpreneur program down to just 2 people a year. And so we have our 2 people, which I'm really excited about, 2 wonderful women who are just kind of embarking on their journey. I also own a small publishing, press, and production company called Blue House Literary and Blue House Media. And we are launching a new author in the spring. And right now we're just working on partnerships kind of across the globe. We have a handful of partnerships where we are launching these really cool digital portals on the sides of business places that people can go up to. And it's like a cool photo op, but also you can scan a QR code and get a chapter of their book. And yeah, it's just a really, the entire marketing scheme is really centered around art, communication, and kindness. And so it's just creating new conversations in the culture, across cultures, across countries. So that's in the works right now. I'm putting the finishing touches on my own book. I'm putting the finishing touches on Chris's book right now. Yeah, we've launched a whole new website. It's the first time I've rebranded since 2018. So that was really excited. And I wanted it to really reflect all the things we're doing at TruePath too. And lastly, just trying to stay tethered to my roots in the mental health world. I was just connecting with somebody this morning. We're working on trying to get this creative arts center built for this direct care facility here in Pittsburgh. So yeah, I think that's enough. I think it's enough.
Yeah, you got plenty going on.
Yeah, it's a lot, but it's great.
Now, I was just going to say, I think one of the things that we enjoy talking about here quite a bit is just kind of the challenge, not necessarily the challenges, but just the craziness of life, right? And just what goes on. Because I think as we talk and being a holistic leadership development company and really understanding that life is a big part of how we show up at work, and knowing, we've talked a lot about the kids and what they've been up to. Talk to us just about Amanda for a little bit. One of the things you'll hear us talk a lot about kind of, for me, I talk a lot about getting old because I feel like I'm like 107, but I'm not. I'm actually pretty young and have to realize that. But some of these things that we go through, our listeners get a lot of a male perspective on our podcast quite a bit. And so I'm just curious for you, like, as you kind of are venturing through life, like, what are some of those profound kind of things that you're learning about yourself or you're looking to kind of navigate?
Well, where do I start? I would love to.
That's why we have lots of podcasts, because we don't know where to start or where to end.
Well, I would love to give all your listeners the more female centric perspective here. Well, I just turned 40, so that has been a shift, and it's not something that I feared or was whatever. I didn't personally feel much about it. But the interesting thing about that as a woman is all my feeds, all my social media, it was overnight switched over to do you need new eye creams? Do you feel like you look tired? Is perimenopause knocking on your door? How, think about how much time you have left to your kids graduate. Are you prepared? And it was just it's been really overwhelming being inundated with this idea of being an aging woman and the shame that's just thrown on you about that, which I don't feel any of. There was a time in my life where I didn't expect to reach 40. And so I'm very excited about aging. I very much appreciate the privilege and the honor of getting old. It's, one of the reasons I quit fighting dyeing my hair, because I love it. I love the way aging looks and the new iterations of myself. And I think this is a conversation that women are really, especially women in business, are just so nervous to have, because I think what I see a lot is, especially with high performing and high achieving women, is there's this extra layer of how you show up. Can you imagine in corporate America, a woman having the, and quote unquote, audacity to kind of show up to work plain faced, hair up, whatever, in the same way that men just get up, wash off their face, throw their jacket on and go to work. So I really hope to model that to some degree, to say that, like, yes, feel good about whatever you need to do. There's no shame in it. Like, if whatever that looks like, feel good in whatever you do, and to try and like destigmatize this idea of female aging. And so that's just been on my radar like a lot lately, big time, really, really deeply. And for me, aging is really less about aesthetics and what it looks like, and more about like the retirement pipeline. Like, okay, now I'm like, counting down, this is what I need to accomplish to have what I want, at this point. Because as an entrepreneur, that's a different conversation than coming from a corporate job with a 401k and all of that stuff in place. So yeah, I think that was really my February for sure.
That makes sense. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. We, with our clients, we bump up to on a bunch of topics similar to this around that extra layer, right? That other filter, that imposter, that role, that lens that we put on to feel like we're enough. And so we talk a lot about this, not just in our practice, but on the podcast. So totally, from a female perspective, I can imagine just how much more challenging that has to be because of the judgment and the heaviness of it. And the fact that, how aware are the audiences, like the men in the room, of that potential? How could they help make that better, right? How could they meet their partners halfway? That's what just comes to mind. I hope we have more of that conversation, because I think that's what's needed, probably more than some of the individual journeys we go through, but just hearing how to be a better partner, right, to those that need it, and to be the person you needed in your darkest moment, right? And how do we show up for each other? And I think you just gave us a glimpse into how maybe some of the men can do that.
Well, and I think the work here really is all of us, but in this specific case, the men around the women they work with, exploring those internal biases that they carry, that might be unconscious, that they might not even know that they carry. Yeah. I mean, there have been a lot of studies that have shown that our perception of women is, in percentages, largely dependent on how they look, like what you see when you look at them, and that their level of competency is partially measured by how you feel when you look at a woman. And so in the workplace, it's really important that men are constantly evaluating that about themselves, evaluating how they feel and how they think about another person based on those things, because the catch-22 here is that for women, that extra layer, because we know that it's not a secret, we carry that with us. So that extra layer is extra mental and emotional work that we're always doing, that the moment that gets taken off of our plate, we can do way more. We're already badasses, right? We're already effective. We're already great. But part of our greatness is our ability to carry so much. Yeah. But so if we can take a little bit off their plate by evaluating our own biases, that's huge.
I think that's what's anchored in Synergy, right? One of our founding principles is that connection and understanding. And so again, I appreciate the perspective in that angle, because it is what we deal with, not just between men and women, but just teams in general, that ability to communicate effectively, to be able to see what the other people need. But Toby's one of the best at teaching us the question of how good are we at being really clear on what we need, and being able to explain that to the people around us. And that conversation's where it gets really funky, right? It's like, who leads with what? Who has who says I need this before someone offers, what do you need, right? Mm-hmm. In that connection. So I love this. I appreciate we could spend a whole podcast on this. And this is where I get in trouble with Chris and Toby.
No, hey, you made a small little comment, and I want to pass it. I want to set Toby up for this, because he could probably walk you down, because he walked me down a lot of this when I was when he was coaching me. And we tend to, as coaches, right? It's a slippery slope between psychology and coaching. The rear view mirror, right, is really important. It's a rear view mirror for a reason. It's small, right? Because we look back, it's important for us to have a glimpse, right, Tobe? But you said something really interesting there. Like, I didn't even think I was going to make it to 40. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I don't need you to get into specifics there. You know what I mean? And Tobe, maybe you can help me kind of walk her down this more than I can. But like, what would you say there, Tobe? Is it how does that show up for who you are today? Is that a safe way to go after that question?
I love it. I think that's great,
We're
Chris.
learning in the moment. I love this.
Well, I don't want to come across. I want to invite you to where you're comfortable going.
Yeah.
Right.
And-
Because that was a like very quickly. Hey, yeah. By the way, I didn't even think I was going to make it to foot. That's like, whoa, man. Like, what the heck? And I know a little bit about your story, but I want to be respectful of it as well. But what that statement? What did that teach you, kind of moving forward?
No, I appreciate you wanting me. I'm comfortable with it. It's not, it's something I've talked about a lot. It took me a lot of years to get to a place to be comfortable about it. And I think it's important. Like, my whole like sort of foundational philosophy behind storytelling is it is so important for those of us who've done the work to be able to tell our story so that other people can hear it and feel permission to tell it. Because I think a lot of times, one of the things we talk a lot about at True Path is masking. Mm-hmm. And I think people, especially into the workplace, like mask to show up who they think they're supposed to be. And I'm not really interested in doing that. I really don't want to have secrets, because I want people to understand, like, you can be successful. You can do the things that you want. You can show up exactly how you want, authentically as you, and still carry your past with you and learn from it. So, I say that because, so I come from a family of addicts on all levels, drugs, alcohol, gambling. And so there's a lot of, I came up with a lot of suppression in my family, which really affected me deeply as I got into being a teenager. Because like once you get into that place where you're trying to form your identity and find your position in the world, those sorts of things really set you apart. That against the backdrop, I think I had my first drink at 8. And I didn't have to sneak it. Like, it was a celebrated thing in my family. It was something like they gave to me. And as I got older, that quickly scaled into drug use, like terrible drug use. And so by the time I was a teenager, I was strung out. I was burnout. I was failing high school. I was not going to high school. Let's be clear. I wasn't going to high school. And when I was going, I was getting in trouble for doing drugs in the bathroom. So I eventually got kicked out and sent to an alternative school. And I didn't even graduate. On graduation day, I walked across the field and they handed me a folder that said, "This is not a diploma." Yeah. Right, thank you. And so, yeah, it was tough. I was one of the big taboo topics that I talk a lot about openly, which is difficult for me to talk about, but important, is self-harm. I was institutionalized for the first time at 16 for self-harm, but I want people to have some permission and some lightness around that topic, because everybody knows somebody, even if they don't know it, who struggles with this. It's not an uncommon thing. It's just uncommonly talked about. And so, yeah, I didn't know like who I was, or I felt like I knew who I was, but I felt like I didn't have permission to be who I was for a really, really long time. So that's how I spent my young adulthood, just real wild and free. I chose to put off college for a while. I just wanted to kind of like be in my life. I moved out when I was 17 and I lived really sparsely. I was just kind of like a writer on the wind. I had a lot of addiction problems, but I really, truly never lost my center and my sense of self. I knew that I would make it out of it at some point. Mm-hmm. And I think my parents knew that too. They were kind of deep in their own stuff. So that was difficult. But at the same time, like everybody, even to this day, like trusted, I'm the strong friend. I'm the one that's going to be okay. So people don't really like worry about me in that way, which is fair. Once I went to college, got 2 degrees. It was ironic to everybody considering I didn't graduate high school. I graduated top 5 of my class. I had an honorary scholarship to study abroad. I had really like found my place, but I was so functional. Like even when I first opened my business, I was not in a great place. I got married while I was still like an active alcoholic. It took a lot of years. What the turning point was, when I was 23, I started to have some real health issues. And they sent me to have a scope done and realized that I had developed Barrett's esophagus, which is something that mostly only people over 65 get. It's kind of a natural process from the acids in your stomach, like eroding away at your esophagus, and it starts to turn the cells and the structure of the cells. So they become precancerous cells, and it develops into throat cancer. Most people, it never develops into cancer because it's pretty slow moving, and you get it when you're super old, like you die not knowing you ever had it. So it's really rare to have it young, but from so much drug and alcohol abuse, I had developed it in my 20s, which was terrifying because the doctor was basically like, this is incurable. You will face a day that it turns to throat cancer, which is incredibly deadly because you're so young. So it put me on a timetable. When I found out at diagnosis, I didn't care. I did not have like the sense of self-worth or really self-awareness. I remember I left that clinic. I threw the recommendations in the garbage and I went to the bar. I didn't revisit that till 10 years later.
Wow.
When I finally got sober, I had to go to an outpatient program because I really had hit rock bottom. My husband found me in the back of a VFW gambling with my grandmother, just wasted. And I knew then that like, okay, I'm going to lose everything in my life pretty soon. So yeah, I started an outpatient program. I wrote Blue Rooms, which is a book of poetry that was turned into a spoken word play. And that really, that piece of art, that creativity saved my life. It was the full expression of everything I ever needed to say to my family and to myself and to my younger self. It was the beginning of a very long journey now of reclaiming those younger selves and younger versions of myself that I had disowned out of pain. And I got sober. And I've been sober over 7 years now. And it's been the most joyful experience of my life. I've had some, I have to do an endoscopy every 3 years to track it. And the last one I just had one. And before that one, the last one before that was very bad. It was like the imaging was all very gray and desiccated and it looked bad. I just went for one and I've sobbed out of happiness so much in my life. The doctor came in and he looked at me and he said, I don't know really how to explain this, but I wouldn't even call this Barrett's anymore. He said that it had almost entirely healed itself. There was only one small spot left that they biopsied that still had those cells, but they reduced my medication down to like a pediatric dose. He was like, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And the truth of that is what I'm doing is being honest. Right. I'm not shaming myself. I'm not disowning those parts of myself or that part of my story. I'm integrating it. And I love that person that I was. Like, I love that sloppy mess. She was cool and she was fun and she was creative and she had a lot to add to the conversation. She just needs some help reeling it in and learning to live as a healthy human being. And that's where I'm at now.
That's all. Wow.
Thanks for going there, bud. Yep. Thanks for going there. It's really important in the coaching that we do. It's like, hey, where are you now? And that piece is still a part of you and you're owning it and you're not. I love that. It's just such an awesome story. And thanks for sharing that with our listeners. I think they're going to take a lot from that. Hopefully that felt okay for you too.
Feels great for me. Yeah.
So cool. So cool. We got to wind down here, guys. Any last questions or thoughts for Amanda while we wind this down?
I just think I just applaud you for, again, I know we were laughing about to know me is to know what, and just kind of that, but just your willingness to go there. And and albeit Chris kind of bringing up that, but none of us missed what you said there. And you didn't miss what you said there, I'm just reminded, Chris, I think to me that you modeled a lot of that, just thoughtful curiosity. And with also the invitation of like giving Amanda space to like, not everything needs to be shared and some things don't. But I think that, again, you leaning in that way, it really, I think a lot of people will hear this and either be able to identify or maybe not even ever be able to identify. But in between all of that there's some lessons, right? There's some lessons about, yourself. And there's also lessons about the people that we think we know, but we really don't till we know them. And I just appreciate you leaning in that way.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I think anybody that's listening will understand pretty quickly why Amanda's on this ride with us, just from that conversation and that the authenticity that came from it. It's what's the most endearing quality about you is that truth and the impacts that you've made on this business over the last year and a half. I mean, we would not be where we are if it wasn't for you. And I echo what Chris said at the beginning. But I just want to personally, before we wrap this up, just thank you for all the impacts you've had on me personally. You're a great partner and somebody that definitely puts herself in a position to be helpful. And I just I hope you realize just the impact that you've had on us individually in TruePath and the business. But you've impacted my family. I mean, you've had a significant impact on people that I care about and that I love very much. And you've been a significant positive influence. So I just want to personally and publicly say thank you for being a great partner, for being a great kind of solutioner of problems as we come up. But more importantly, just being a great human, someone that I'm just really grateful I know, someone I'm grateful that's in my life. So thank you for today. We've been waiting for this for a while. So I appreciate it.
Hey, Amanda has the ton going on. We'll put her new website, which is just awesome. One thing that she forgot to say, and I'm going to yell at you for doing this. She has an unbelievable program called Empathetic Innovation that we are actually incorporating into TruePath. So some of our clients will get a taste of this and hopefully potentially even the whole thing, the whole session. It's just an unbelievable way of like two worlds combining, the creativity and the business world, and just getting back to kind of that curiosity and that invitation to be creative. Right. And when you really walked us through this, Amanda, comes, from the business world, it's like creative. Yeah. Okay. That's for, learning and development department and stuff like that. But it's really like in ourselves. It's in everybody. And when we get to express that creativity, we end up finding ourselves. And you just brilliantly walk people down that path. And I wanted to give you a little bit of a shout there because it's just such an important program that you developed. But guys, if you want to check her out, it's amandafilippelli.com. Check out our website. We'll put it in the show notes. But Amanda, hey, I just wanted to say thanks to you. I think you meet people in your life for a reason. I'm a huge believer of that. And I think for so many years, I didn't lift up my head enough. I might even get emotional here now. I didn't lift my head up enough to maybe see some of those people. And I'm just glad I did with you. And you made such an impact on me. And this book, I'm just so excited to finish it with you, and just the partner and the friend that you become to me. It's just, it's amazing how we met. It's amazing what this has become. And I'm so excited you're on the ride with us, bud. So thanks for everything you do for us.
Thank you. I love you guys. Thank you.
Everybody. Best podcast of the year right here.
There you go.
Look at that.
Andy, you're the best.
We got tears out of Chris. Guys. We got emotion coming out. I self-indict myself on being insecure in the first 5 minutes. The best show we've ever had.
There you go. It's all of it.
And I came prepared in case you needed me to walk in.
First 10 minutes. First 10 minutes.
10. Sorry. I thought it was 5. Usually it's plenty. But in case we got off track, I had notes. I was going to walk some things in today, Chris. So just know I was ready.
I appreciate that. Listeners, we'll get that next time from Stu. We'll have him walk in another brilliant topic. So, hey, everybody, thanks so much for walking the path with us. Have a great day. Leadership doesn't have to cost you your health, your relationships, or your sense of purpose. TruePath exists to help you create space for the real work, the kind that helps you lead with presence in both business and in life. When you start showing up fully, everything starts to shift. That's what we're here for. If this conversation gave you pause or sparked a deeper question, about how you're leading, don't ignore that. Reach out. This is the work we do, and we'd be honored to support your journey.